Welcome back. I've been getting some requests for some updated information on the Honda Helix, on the Vespa project, the 1964 Vespa 90 that I'm restoring. And, well, not much progress has been made since you last saw it, but a few things have happened. So let's start with the engine. I don't know if I got this on film or not, but I started actually, no, I did. I did get it on film. But I started disassembling the engine to get a good idea as to the amount of wear and tear that I'm dealing with. And what I found is that the cylinder and the piston are in perfect condition. And according to the burn pattern on this piston, it's been running very well. When it was running very clean, almost too clean. But there really isn't any damage or scratching or gouging on the piston or the bore. So that's good news. Now, the little contraption that this engine is sitting in has a little bit of history on its own. This started out life as two kitchen cabinet doors. When my director of technology, the former director of technology where I work, was remodeling his kitchen, his father-in-law took all the doors from his old cabinets, these nice thick plywood doors, good quality stuff anyway, he converted all of them into computer tower stands. And the purpose of that was that all the desktop PCs, which are towers, in the main office would be resting in one of these things, so that the tower can be rolled around as needed, and it would keep it off the floor to prevent any or excessive dust intrusion. And some double or extra wide ones were made. This is one of them. Were made for the Acer Altos servers that we had in our server room, and this is one of those extra wide ones. But most of these were made quite narrow, and to this day they're all still in existence. I think we have like probably a dozen of these things kicking around. Now, the reason it's here is I was going to convert it into an engine stand. Now, Vespa enthusiasts, every real Vespa enthusiast will have one of these. There are a couple of companies that make engine stands that allow you to service the engine completely, including a complete rebuild, and start it without it ever leaving the stand. And they're expensive. I mean, the one I need is probably going to run me about $75 to $100. So my thought was I could make one out of this. And I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. But what I need to do is I need the engine to be... well, this isn't really going to work without modification. I'm going to have to get some angle irons. I might have to do some welding. But what I'm going to end up doing is cutting down the walls of this so that it's a flat cart. And because it's nice and it's really well structured underneath. So these sidewalls can be cut down. I can mount some brackets that I have to make onto this, screw them down, and I'll have a nice little engine stand to do all the major engine overhaul work that's needed. But nothing else has been done to the motor, and so we're in good shape there. Now this is where I've made more progress. The body of the scooter, well, I've done nothing to it, but I did obtain a replacement engine door. It turns out this particular scooter, or this particular model year, I should say, has a very peculiar styled engine door. It's one of the hardest to find, and there just weren't a lot of them made with this style door. The Vespa small frame evolved over the course of a couple of years. The 1963 was the first model year, and I think 64 was the first model year available to the U.S. I could be wrong on that. Probably am. But when it was first made, it had a very small engine door. This is the first of the two small engine door models. The second one, I'll take the door off to show you the difference. Okay. The first door was held in by these angled pegs or pins. And it would drop into these holes here. And there'd be rubber bumpers in all the other holes, just as there would be in any other version. and then the door kind of closes up like that. And then you just latch it. Takes two hands. Well, one hand if it's firmly attached to something. Anyway, so that's how the door is mounted. The second version of this door features dog legs that kind of stick out on either side, and they interlock with grooves that are stamped into the body. The third door was the more common door. That was the large door, and that allowed access to more of the engine when it was installed. And I think the 125cc all but requires the large door. The large door is basically the same design, very similar, only it extends up further. So it probably comes up to about here rather than way down here. And I think it's a little wider too. But on the small door models, installing a 125 cc engine is a little difficult. Or if it's not difficult to install, but it's very difficult to service. Now this door is a reproduction, as many of them are. Trying to find an original door is quite challenging, unless you find someone who is in the business of scrapping salvaged scooters. So this is a reproduction. I believe it was made in India, and it cost me around 50 bucks including shipping. Normally this door retails for around, I think it sells for about 75 bucks, depending on where you buy it. This is not a high quality door. I should point out that the latch mechanism is definitely not anything close to OEM. And one of the reasons for that is it's actually it's riveted together. It shouldn't be riveted. It should be bolted together. And that's a big problem, because when I go to have this door painted, I'm going to have it painted professionally, the latch cannot be removed without destroying it. Which I may do. I may take a Dremel tool and cut that pin off, and I can actually buy a replacement latch. But for the sake of keeping things simple, I may just grin and bear it, if you will, and leave it alone. What I'll probably end up doing is just masking it off, or having the painter mask it off as best he can, and just live with whatever the side effects are. But yeah, this is a very poorly made latch. Other than that, the door is fine. It comes pre-primered and ready to cinch, ready to mount. I still need to buy a set of rubber grommets, and those will actually come with the body rubber set that I buy. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff I need to buy for this thing. So, excuse me, I'm gonna just take the camera. I think the reason so many of these doors have been lost over the years is because they're so easy to want to leave unlatched or to partially latch. If I left it like this, you know, it may stay on for a while, but eventually that latch will vibrate down. Remember, it's a two-stroke engine, and they do vibrate quite a bit, especially at higher speeds. So not only do the latches, either they can fail or they can be improperly latched, but the little pegs that hold the door in place can rust off or break off through fatigue or just everyday wear and tear. So a lot of those doors have been lost over the years, which is why there's a big market for replacement doors. In terms of the scope of bodywork, I know I covered that in previous videos, but since we're making this one, we'll discuss it anyway. I have to have a dent professionally removed. It's a bad one. About as bad as it gets. There's no structural damage. There's no... It's purely cosmetic. But it's... For a scooter that its number one selling point, or its number one feature, is its style, you really want to make sure that it looks as it's intended. Unless you're going for a rat bike look, which I've actually honestly toyed with. I've considered it, turning it into a rat scooter. But I don't really want to do that. I want to go all out and I want to do it right. So I've got to have a dent removed. I've got to have some welding done. Now, I have access to an arc welder, but I don't have the skill, and I don't believe the arc welder is the right answer. I think it needs to be done with a MIG welder or some kind of a gas welder of some kind. But I have to have several areas welded. One of the most common areas for these to break is right here, and it's broken. The decking has actually separated from the I believe it's called like a stirrup or a spine or something like that. There's a term for this. We'll call it an outrigger, just for the sake of getting this video done. But it is actually separated. The two spot welds that hold it together have broken from fatigue, and that's just an unfortunate reality of these all steel scooter bodies. That kind of stuff happens. So I've got to have this spot. I would like to have it spot welded, as it was originally done. But before all that, I have to bring the entire thing out to a sandblasting outfit out in eastern New Hampshire. And they specialize in vintage automotive and motorcycle blasting. One of their claims to fame is that they use a glass bead media. It's actually made from crushed glass. And that crushed glass is much softer on the metal than what other shops would use, like Black Beauty. And it's more coarse than crushed walnuts. I've looked into what type of blasting media would be the best for a body like this, and it seems that crushed glass is the way to go. So we've got, we're going to have some progress in the near future. I'm holding off on getting it blasted, which, by the way, is one of the most affordable steps in the process. The sandblasting is only going to cost me about $100, and that's with an anti-corrosive coating. I believe it's phosphate or phosphor, and they'll apply that after it's blasted, and that's going to stave off rust from the humidity in the air for just a little while, but it's not going to last long. And I got to realize that we start getting humid weather in spring usually. So I want to. Here's what I'm expecting to do. I'm going to first have the entire body blasted. Get all the paint off, get all the rust off, and I'm going to do the underside as well as the top side. And I'm going to try to avoid getting anything into the carburetor area because there's a lot of good original paint there. So I want to leave that alone. But before I do that, I need to have the paint color matched. So I've got to bring it to a paint shop and have them professionally color match based on a few key areas that are undamaged. So we've got to get the paint color matched, then it's got to go to the blasting shop. From the blasting shop, it has to go immediately to the body shop. Now the body shop is going to do the welding for me. I haven't actually asked them about the welding, but I know he does it, and I'm sure it won't be too much more on top of my bill. But I'm going to have the welding done. I've got to fix a crack in the leg shield. That was the result of a leg shield mounted mirror that had caused fatigue failure of the metal. So I've got to get that fixed. That's the biggest one. Not to mention the floor pan, and I think there's another spot somewhere else. Now this body shop specializes in dent removal. They're going to take care of the massive dent on the other side. I'd rather not show it right now. It's just up there. I'm going to leave it there for now. But I've got a few other small dents that even I could fix, but I'll just have him do all the dents and any Bondo work that it needs. In addition to the Bondo work, I'm also going to have him replace some of the body seam sealer that has been removed or cracked. So I'm going to have him kind of patch that up. I'm also going to have him give it a nice coat of primer. Once the primer is on the body, it's pretty much safe from rust when it's stored indoors. If you store it outdoors, it will rust. Primer is, in fact, porous. So the reason I'm going to have the body shop do the primer is because he can do a professional job using a catalyzed primer. I don't want to use the stuff out of a rattle can. There's nothing wrong with it, but I believe that a nice catalyzed or epoxy primer is the way to go. That'll give it a more durable base coat, or a more durable finish for the paint to adhere to. Now once the primer is done, once the dents are out, I can start considering paint. Now I could have this shop do the paint. He gave me a very nice rate. He was going to charge me, I think, around $700 for just the paint. He gave me a quote of $300 for the dents and $700 for the paint. We haven't discussed primer. He was expecting me to give it to him with primer on it, but I need to renegotiate that. But once I have all that done, the stress is off my shoulders, and I can actually see some progress. Once I see progress with it, then I'll save up a little more money, and then I'll have it painted. Now, I have other shops that can do the paint. I'm going to go cheap on the paint. Well, not really. Okay, let me clear that up. The original paint on this, I believe it was it's not lacquer, but it's some other type of paint that I don't think we can get in the U.S. anymore. Of course, the paints that they used back in the 60s, I believe, were more heavily solvent based. They were not environmentally friendly. Modern paints are not what they used to be. So I've got to find a good quality paint that can be color matched to the original, and it has to be a single stage paint job. The body shop guy I spoke to tried to talk me out of this single stage because he says it won't look as good. But here's the thing. I want it to look as original as possible. I don't want to add anything fancy. Now, multi-stage paint, in this case, would be a solid base coat with a clear coat. If I did a metallic, it would have a base, a color coat, and a clear coat. That's 3-stage paint. So he was proposing 2-stage. That's the base coat and a clear. Base coat and color are the same in this scenario. Paint is expensive, and so is clear coat. So paint, just the paint alone, is going to set me back $250 at least. You add a clear coat on that, you're probably adding another $100, $150. Primer. I don't know what primer costs, professional grade primer, but you get my point. So to make it more original, I'm going to stick with a single stage paint, coat of paint, and that is going to not accentuate the body creases as much. It's also, well, no, it actually kind of will, because the paint will be much thinner. One of the characteristics of the Vespa is the exposed body seams, and you want to keep those visible. You don't want to mud over them. You want to keep that, that construction, kind of like how the Mini Cooper, original Mini Cooper, was built with exposed body seams and welds. It's part of the character. It's part of the design. That was actually something that a fellow Vespa enthusiast discussed with me, and I felt he had a great point. So once all that's done, once the paint is on, which I'm going to do this in steps. I'm not going to do it all at once. I can't afford to do that. Once that's partially done, I'm going to start working on mechanical stuff. Now, I already have a bill of materials or a bill of goods that I need to purchase, and I'm going to work with a U.S. importer that works closely with this company, and they know all the import restrictions and taxes and tariffs and all the great stuff. It's going to cost me somewhere around $1,600 for all the mechanical parts I need. That's a lot of money. I mean, it really is a lot of money. Considering that the resale value of this scooter when it's done probably will not exceed $4,000. It won't exceed $4,000. That's a guarantee. In fact, an unrestored Vespa 90 with low miles is for sale in my area without the dents for $1,700. So that doesn't discourage me at all. I mean, it really doesn't. I still want to see this project through as a matter of pride and a matter of experience. I want to go through the whole process, and that you can't buy. But $1,700 definitely was it doesn't sit well with me. The fact that somebody has one of these, it needs paint. It does need paint, but for $1,700, it runs and drives and has no dents. So, with all that put together, I am looking forward to completing this project. It's going to take a long time and a lot of money, but this is about the only update I'm going to give you. The next time you see this, we'll probably have the sanding done. It'll have primer on it, and it'll be all the dents will be fixed, hopefully. So, all right. Well, that's it for now, and thanks for watching. And come back for more. It'll come. I'm thinking sometime this summer. All right.